lead on an empty tank, your people always pay the price first.
Hey everyone, and welcome. Let's talk about something that's probably a leader's most valuable and most ignored resource, their energy. We're going to dive into why feeling totally drained at the end of the day isn't some kind of weakness, but actually a signal that your self-control needs a serious strategic rest. Okay, let's get into it. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's late, you've made what feels like a million decisions, and yeah, you're still the one in charge, but you're just running on empty. You find yourself saying yes to stuff you shouldn't, or maybe putting off that one conversation you know you need to have. You are just completely done.
And here is the absolute key takeaway. That feeling? It is not a character flaw. It's not a moral failing. It's biology. The whole idea here is to reframe this. Think about your self-control less like a virtue and more like a muscle. And, just like any muscle in your body, it gets exhausted from overuse.
There's actually a scientific name for this. It's called ego depletion. Basically, it's the idea that your ability to manage your emotions, to fight off distractions, and to make those hard calls, well, it all comes from a limited tank of mental energy. The more you use it without refueling, the less you have for that next big challenge. So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to look at the real cost of being on all the time. Then we'll walk through a real-world story about a leader named Caroline. After that, we'll explore what a structured system for recovery looks like, and we'll wrap up with one simple strategic step you can take, like today. All right, let's start with why this isn't just some abstract idea from a psychology textbook. For any leader, ego depletion is a serious, day-to-day risk. It impacts your team, your decisions, and honestly, your own sanity.
And the scale of this thing is, well, it's huge. Get this, research from Gallup shows that 1 out of every 4 leaders says they feel burned out very often or always. Think about that. That is a massive amount of leadership talent just running on empty.
And it's no wonder, right? Just think about all the little things that drain that energy account every single day. Every time you have to stay cool when your team is freaking out, or say no to that shiny new project that's a total distraction, or have that tough feedback conversation, you're using that self-control muscle. It all adds up fast.
And this has some pretty scary real-world consequences. There's this famous study on parole judges, and it found that they were way more likely to grant parole first thing in the morning or right after lunch. As the day wore on and they got tired, their decisions got harsher, simpler. No is just an easier answer when you're drained. That's decision fatigue right there.
So what does this actually look like for you? I mean, look at this contrast. It's night and day. When that muscle is overloaded, you say yes to everything, you avoid conflict, you micromanage. But when that exact same muscle is rested, you negotiate, you address issues head-on, you protect your time, and you actually coach your people. You're the same leader, but with a totally different impact. The only thing that changed was recovery.
Okay, so let's make this really concrete. Let's look at how this plays out with a real person. This is the story of Caroline, who learned to treat rest not as some nice-to-have luxury, but as a core part of her job as a leader.
Does this sound at all familiar? Caroline was the hero. She was always on, always available, the one holding it all together. But that meant she was in up to 30 meetings a week, had literally no time for deep strategic thinking, and was checking emails late into the night. Her self-control muscle wasn't just tired, it was completely shot.
So she ran a really simple 8-week experiment. And notice how practical and structured these steps are. This wasn't about trying harder or finding more willpower. No, it was about building a structure to protect her energy. It was about using simple tools to make the costs visible and to track one tiny key recovery habit. It wasn't about educating her on a new theory. It was about activating a new system.
And the results were just incredible. After just a few weeks, her team noticed she was calmer, more present in conversations. She started dealing with small problems before they blew up into huge crises. Her team felt way more supported, and her evenings, they finally became actual recovery time. She didn't change who she was. She just changed her system.
I love this quote from executive coach Pascal Dubois. If you never allow your leadership muscle to rest, it stops being a muscle and becomes a knot. Constant tension doesn't make you stronger. It just makes you tense and ineffective. Caroline learned how to untie that knot.
And that brings us to such an important idea. Good intentions and willpower are not enough. Why? Because when you're tired, they are the very first things to disappear. You don't need more willpower. You need a system, an ecosystem even, that makes rest the default, not just another thing on your to-do list.
And this is exactly the kind of structure that helped Caroline. A good ecosystem is designed to solve these really specific problems. You know, a proactive planner stops a reactive week before it starts. A tool that shows you the cost of meetings makes it painfully obvious what needs to go. An app that tracks recovery makes rest a priority. It's about building a system so you don't have to rely on a tired brain to make good decisions. Okay, so let's bring this all home to you. You do not need to go build some perfect, complicated system tomorrow. That's the opposite of the point. The whole idea is to reduce the strain, not add more. All you need is one small, intentional act to get the ball rolling.
So just take a second and really think about this. Where is your energy actually going? Is it in saying yes all the time? Is it managing a difficult team member? Is it just biting your tongue in yet another frustrating meeting? Just naming it. That's a huge first step.
Okay, now that you know where the leak is, where could you make one tiny change? What is one small thing you could do that would give that specific, overworked muscle just a little bit of a break?
And hey, if you're drawing a blank, no worries. Here are a few simple ideas to get you started. Just pick one. Seriously. Cancel one awful meeting. Block off 90 minutes in your calendar for focused work. Commit to closing your laptop at 9 p.m. tonight. That's it. You just have to start small.
And please remember, the impact of this is so much bigger than just you. When you strategically protect your energy, you're not being selfish, you're being strategic. You are modeling a more sustainable, more human way to lead. You show your entire team that consistency is way more valuable than just raw intensity. And you give them permission to be human too.
Let's end on this powerful idea from Donald Fleming, the president of M360 Leader. True strength isn't about having endless willpower. It's about having the wisdom to organize your work and your life so that you almost never have to lead on fumes. So the real question for you is this: what's the one thing you'll organize this week to make sure you're leading with a full tank?